Hi, welcome to Nina in the Kitchen, where today I'm making French onion soup, which is really rather a simple soup. So I'm going to take the time and show you how to make the soup go from a really good soup to a fabulous soup. And it's about technique and products. So let's just get started. The first place that you start is with your onions. It is French onion soup after all. I have, as you can see, 2 pounds. This serves 4, so this really breaks down, okay? But this is 2 pounds of onions, and as you can see, they're sliced very, very fine. What you don't want to do with onions is buy sweet onions. The reason they're sweet is because they contain a lot of water. I'm talking about Vidalia onions. Out west, it's a Walla Walla. Do not use those onions. They have a lot of water. And what happens is that water just kind of leaches out and your onion becomes mushy and sort of dissolves. So the best onion to use is just a yellow cooking onion or a Spanish onion. I would not use a red onion here either. And the reason for that is it doesn't look very pretty in the soup when you're done. So you can use it, but yeah, it's not the best choice. Okay, 5-quart saucepan over medium heat. I'm going in with 3 tablespoons of butter. This is an unsalted butter. The reason for the butter is the delicious flavor. And then I'm putting in 1 tablespoon of, this is a light olive oil. A tablespoon of olive oil. The reason for the oil is to raise the temperature of, I should say raise the smoke point on the butter so that your butter doesn't burn. With French onion soup, once you get the base done, you can keep the base for days. Turn this into a weeknight meal because putting it together at the end is very simple. Okay, I hear sizzling, so in go the onions. I'm going to salt the onions. That's about a ½ teaspoon. I'm also going to use my most experienced spatula just to stir this on occasion. And the reason I'm choosing the spatch over the spoon is because of the footprint. If you stir something, especially something that's going to brown in your pan, look at the footprint versus this little ellipse, okay? So there's not much here. I'm going with the spatula. I'm going to put a lid on this, but this is looking just a little dry. These onions may not be very fresh, so you see I'm not getting much right now. These have been in for about 2 minutes. So what I'm going to do is add just a little glug of cognac. Cognac is going in, that's about 2 teaspoons. Cognac is going into the base of the soup, so it's a good addition here. You can use red wine, white wine, chicken stock, or water. Oh, that smells good. A lid goes on, and I'll stir this from time to time, but I'm going to look at it in about 20 minutes, take the lid off, then they should be a golden brown, and we'll proceed from there. I've stirred this maybe 5 times in 20 minutes. As you can see, I'm starting to get a little brown on the bottom, and you want to scrape that up as you see it, because you don't want these to burn. And they can, at this point, you can see that there's no liquid left anymore. These are, I tasted them, they're so sweet. I'm going to keep them on medium heat, take the lid off right now, and just stir these. You have to keep your eye on them now for 20 to 25 minutes until they're sweet and caramelized, and you'll see what that looks like in just a moment. These onions are caramelized. I've tasted them. They are so sweet, and I don't want to get them much darker than this. So now, this is optional depending on the broth that you're going to use. So I'll talk about the broth in a moment, but this is a tablespoon of flour, just all-purpose flour, and this technique in French cooking is called a liaison. And what you're doing is just making, in America it's called a vegetable roux, but what you're doing is just putting flour over vegetables in a pan that have some fat in them, and you're just going to mix it up. And what this does, and the reason you would do it here, is because it's going to give you a very velvety mouthfeel when you add the broth. Those are looking good. I'm also going to add I'm going to say half a teaspoon of a very beautiful cut of thyme. It's a nice cut because it's kind of chunky. It's called a chef's cut. You can also use a fresh thyme spray if you have it, or two, but that's a delicious flavor in here. Let me talk about the broth for just a moment. The last time that I made beef broth, you know, beef broth takes a lot of meat and beef bones. And the last time I made it was so ridiculously expensive that I thought I'm not doing that again. So what I have found, and I'm not affiliated with these people in any way, there's a product called Better Than Bouillon. And it makes a really nice base for either chicken or beef, and they have seafood versions as well. It comes in this sort of paste. The first ingredient is roast beef. There's beef stock in here, and it's really a nice product. Their chicken is as well. Well, in France, what they do is some people just use chicken stock to make French onion soup. Other people use just beef stock, and still others mix the two. And I actually like the two mixed. The flavor is more complex, and since I make chicken stock or chicken broth, I'm going to use my frozen, that I make them into cubes. I'm using my frozen chicken stock, and I'm going to make this bouillon. So this is 2 cups of chicken stock. I'm going to pop this in the microwave just to melt. At this point, you just slowly pour your stock into the onions and stir as you go, because remember you have that flour in there, so that'll thicken it up. That was 4 cups of the beef broth, and now this is the 2 cups of chicken stock, or chicken broth. The difference between stock and broth is made with meat and bone. So that's typically what I make when I do my chicken broth. But because it gives you a lot of flavor, and you're ready to make a soup as soon as it's finished. Whereas stocks are made just with bone. And so it's something that you would use to flavor something, like if you're making rice, for example, you might want a little flavor to it. You can add stock to that instead of water. It'll give you a little flavor, but there's really not much there. So I always go broth. The beef bouillon is seasoned, so I'm not going to add any more salt, but I want pepper in here. This is 1/4 cup or 4 tablespoons of cognac. I'm going to put 2 tablespoons in here now, so about half of it's there. So you bring it up to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, and let this simmer for 15 to 20 minutes. You might not ever see this anywhere else, but what happens in that time is that the onions and the sweetness of the onions mixed with the beef and this chicken and the thyme, all of that blends together and makes a really beautiful tasting soup that you really don't get otherwise. This was on for about 15 minutes, I would say. And remember, it keeps cooking. This is going to go under a broiler. So now is when you put your last 2 tablespoons of cognac in there. You don't have to do that, but it does give it the je ne sais quoi, that special something that really makes it delicious. A lot of people use red wine, and some people use white wine, and in France I'm sure it goes like this. What's in the house? That's what I'll use. Just don't use a sweet wine. The onions are caramelized, that's another layer of sweetness. So here's how you assemble it. Now, again, you can make this base days ahead if you like. It's got that little bit of thyme in it. It smells really good. So now what you want to do, you can kind of see what this bread is. It's crusty French bread, country bread, I call it. You can use baguettes, you can use whatever you want. This is about that's about an inch thick. I really went to town on this one. So find a good bread, good quality bread. Baguette is fine, and the baguette, I'm using these little pots. A baguette will fit beautifully in the bottom of this. So for this one, I think I'm going to have to take a piece off, and you can break it up or not. This is a Gruyère cheese, but you can use an Emmentaler cheese, which is a Swiss cheese, Conti. Those are all Alpine cheeses, and what they have in common is a nuttiness. And they also get very stretchy. So if you're having a beautiful fine dining dinner experience, you're having a dinner party with friends. You don't want them sitting at the table with these long bits of cheese, right? So if you don't want a stringy cheese, you want a really nice quality, and by that I mean Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. You'll have the same nuttiness quality to the cheese, but you won't have the strings. This goes under a broiler, and you can just keep your eye on it for, I'm going to guess, about 5 minutes or so. Just keep your eye on it. You want this bubbly and brown, and then you're ready to eat. I'll be right back as soon as that happens. This is delicious. The broth is rich. It's a deep flavor. Really, really good. There's a little sweetness in the background from the onions. And yes, the cheese is gooey and stringy, so I won't eat that on camera, but I will eat it. A great winter salad, like a beet salad or the fennel salad that I made, would be perfect with this, with a glass of Beaujolais. Oh la la, as my grandmother would say. This is fabulous. I hope you try this recipe. Very easy, goes together quickly once you have the base done. Great winter meal. I hope you try it. Let me know if you do. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.